Holy shit, I'm on camera! Let's talk about some horror anime OVAs from the early 1990s. Here's The Curse of Kazuo Umezu. So Umezu Kazuo no Noroi, or translated into English as The Curse of Kazuo Umezu, which I'll continue to refer to it as from here on out, is a horror anime OVA from the early 1990s that runs for 43 minutes and is split into 2 individual episodes. I don't really know much about the backstory or what have you for this production from Takahashi Studio, but what I can tell you is that the original creator is acclaimed manga author Kazuo Umezu, who has been in the manga game ever since the 1960s. I've never read any of his work, so I cannot really comment on them. I discovered this buried treasure I guess maybe 8 years ago. I'm not entirely sure how I even came across it, but I'm kinda glad I did. Looking up random horror anime to watch recently brought this one back to my attention, and seeing as how Halloween is a few days away, I decided to bring it to you alls as well. So let's go ahead and check out the first episode titled, What Will the Video Camera Reveal? So the first episode starts off with the introduction of one of the main characters of this story, a new transfer student who studied abroad in Mexico named Rima. She's quite the looker, and the thirst from the boys in class is way more than even a Sprite could quench. The close-up shots are nicely detailed for what seems like a really budget OVA from the early 90s. We are introduced to the main character named Masami, who seemingly has some sort of issue with the new student. This chick is way extra here. Anyways, Masami starts to get these strange feelings day after day, and at night she has grim nightmares that she can barely remember after waking. She also has a scar suddenly show up on her neck out of nowhere, and her window is always open. This is already fucked. The next day after school, she is somehow drawn to, of all places, Rima's home. What could have drawn her here? I wonder. Masami again has another night terror, and this time we get a glimpse of a freakish monstrosity. These types of scenes is where this episode really shines. Masami wants to know more of what's going on, and a fellow classmate named Umezu-kun helps her with the issue by suggesting she records her sleeping and gives her a camcorder. She accepts. Umezu-kun watches the capture footage and is freaked the fuck out. He gets the hell out of there, suggesting as he exits that she check the video for herself. Rima is then seen in the next scene being hauled off in an ambulance. What the fuck is going on? Also, Masami has also gotten, by some sorcery, a lot prettier all of a sudden. She has the Mr. Sparkle kind of thing going on. She finally decides to watch the video, and the relationship between her and the new girl in town, Rima, has finally surfaced. So, as for my final thoughts, the episode has its ups and downs, mostly downs, but the ups that are there are pretty good. Let's list them off, shall we? So let's start off with the ups. Number 1, the animation. Now bear with me here. I only consider this an up because it surprisingly helps set the tone of the film. While still bad, it's not even close to the worst I've seen in animation. Can be a bit detailed when it wants to be, but also takes shortcuts for what I would assume was budget restraints. The big thing to take away from the animation is the shots with the monster. They look absolutely fantastic. Really reminds me of something out of Rotsuku Doji or Wicked City. Really sick and really twisted stuff. Another good thing was the music. While there isn't much music to begin with, what we do get is actually really well done and makes watching this episode that much more investing. And the last good thing about this episode was the pacing. The horror scenes don't take too long to show, and that's really what you should be watching this for. Enough said. Hey, it's only a 20-minute episode. Now let me go ahead and put it out there and say, do not go into this OVA, both episodes, expecting something thought-provoking or to have really engaging and interesting characters with development. Not much of that here.
Huh? You're kidding!
Unless you count the fact that Masami has no clue who she really is and eventually finds out. Now let's talk about the downs. I'll keep these brief, very brief. Once again, I gotta speak on the animation. It's both an up and a down. Anything that isn't a close-up or really important, or rather scary scene, just looks bad. More on the animation in the episode 2 analysis. And lastly, everything was a little predictable from a plot standpoint. The last scene with the Masami monster. really cool and really shitty at the same time. From going from the last glimpse of the Masami monster protruding from her neck, spooking the absolute crap out of Umezu-kun, to an awful fast cut of what we assume was him falling from a window. I don't know. It could have been fucking Wile E. Coyote for all we know. Now let's take a look at episode 2, titled The Haunted Mansion. So right off the bat, we're introduced to our two main characters for this episode named Nanako and Miko. Nanako is quite the horror and occult fan and has rented a few VHS horror films to watch as they spend the night together. Miko seems to just have to put up with Nanako's selections for the evening. Okay, first things first. These girls are in, I'm assuming, high school, and they're getting totally twisted off the good stuff. Beer, that is. What the hell? Just how old are these girls? Nanako has had a bit too much and needs to use the ladies' room. She takes a peek out the window and sees, off in the distance, a local abandoned mansion. Of course, Nanako, being the adventurous type that she is, decides her and Miko should explore it. I mean, why not? Miko is not at all interested. Besides, according to legend, that place is haunted. She decides to walk at least Nanako there and no more. In the next scene, we are introduced to two supporting characters out of seemingly nowhere. Okay. The three girls, sans Miko, decide to go all inside the manor. Miko, feeling left out, decides to go in as well. Some really great background music kicks in as the girls explore the place. They soon come upon a very large picture of a very beautiful woman. Very, very creepy. After a bit more searching of the home, our group of meddlesome explorers end up in what seems to be a child's playroom. Spookiness ensues. Here's where I feel like this story really stands out. Things get a lot more interesting and suddenly a shadowy figure appears in a dark corner of the room. It creeps closer and closer to our cast. I think shit just got real. So again, like the previous episode, it has its ups and downs. Let's check them off, shall we? So let's start off with the ups. First of all, the animation. It's an up and a down. However, I think this episode was a tad bit better overall. There seemed to be less still shots with minor animation. Artwork was solid most of the time. Close-ups and detailed scenes still look great for such an old OVA. The dark, morbid backgrounds really work in this episode's favor. And once again, the music, while limited, was pretty darn good. What was presented here is quality stuff. And the last good thing about this episode was the build-up all the way to the final twist is fantastic. It's nothing we haven't seen before in any horror media, but with this particular OVA, I legitimately felt the entirety of this episode was thrilling all the way to the very end. More shocks, better twists, and more graphic imagery definitely makes this one the standout episode for The Curse of Umezu Kazuo. And now for the downs. More of the same from the prior episode. When it comes to the animation, when it's bad, it's bad. At least it's less consistent when it comes to stills than the prior episode. And also, a lot of questions were left unanswered. Not the hugest issue given this is mostly a shock value episode, but I feel a few things could have been elaborated on a bit more, especially the whole thing with the child's room / toys and what they really represented. But overall, this was a fantastic watch. So for my final thoughts, a lot of people who have checked out this obscure anime seem to lean towards the first story. I feel the shock value and build-up for the Haunted Mansion makes it the definitive episode to check out if you're into any kind of horror media. Not the greatest horror OVA, but not half bad either. So guys, give this one a chance on a quiet, rainy night. Perhaps this Halloween would be even better. Also, being alone would help set the mood to watch this horrifying classic OVA from the 1990s that's almost certain to have you losing sleep that very same night. It's been fun bringing this one-shot horror anime to your attention, and I hope some of you decide to check it out. See you all next time and happy Halloween.